Female babysitter notices weird things while working out. The single man who hired her was spying on her. But the strange thing is that the woman pretends not to notice. She lies calmly on the couch, while the man stared at her in place, until the nanny couldn't pretend any longer. The man then looked a little sheepish. He saw the situation was getting awkward. He immediately reminded the nanny to put on more clothes, because his daughter has returned. The nanny had to get up and put on her coat, but no one knew what she was going to do, because men sneak a few glances at her. She then walked up to Daisy's room in triumph, and said provocatively that she wanted to be Daisy's stepmother. And that instantly enraged Daisy. She thought her father would always be her own, but the nanny was not impressed. She ignored Daisy's change of expression and just kept talking, and that pissed Daisy off. Her father was about to leave the house. Daisy stopped him at the door. She told her father, who was on his way out the door, that the nanny was going to be her stepmother. The man explained to Daisy that it was all a misunderstanding. He would never marry the nanny, and then he calmed his daughter down and left. But Daisy would not stop there. Late at night, the nanny realized that Daisy had disappeared. She was afraid something was wrong, but when she went to the window, she found a light on in the tool shed. In order to keep her job, she went to the tool room to look for her, but she accidentally touched the mechanism by mistake. The iron door fell down heavily. The nanny felt something was wrong, but the door was already locked. Before she knew what had happened, a fire came from the door. This nanny's face was suddenly tense. How could there be such a coincidence? She had only just entered the room when the fire broke out. She called out for help, but Daisy was already behind her. And then the nanny realized what had happened. By the time her father got home, police cars had surrounded the house. The police informed him that the cause of the fire was under investigation. Luckily, his daughter survived. But looking at Daisy at that moment, the father's heart was full of mixed feelings. He didn't know whether to be happy or sad. By the end of the night, he couldn't stand it any longer. He came to Daisy and asked her. He wanted his daughter to tell him the truth, because he had already realized it. And when it became clear that she couldn't hide it any longer, Daisy finally told the truth. How she would push her classmate off the cliff, and the bees that were placed on the teacher's car, and setting fires all over the place, and even how the first babysitter once fell down the stairs of her own house, all of which Daisy did. The man was devastated when he found out. He told Daisy she shouldn't be so cruel, but Daisy thought she was right. It was all their fault. Looking at Daisy's eyes with such determination, he felt nothing but horror in his heart. He couldn't sleep at all that night. In the morning, he got a call from the police. Detectives had found the cause of the fire. They found an ignition device at the scene, and they want Daisy to cooperate with the investigation. The man said Daisy was in shock and wouldn't recover until next week. The police had no choice but to agree, but the father's heart was in turmoil. He woke up Daisy in her sleep. He doesn't want the agents to take his daughter. He wanted to take care of it himself. If Daisy was just confused, he wanted Daisy to admit she was wrong. A short time later, they arrived at a villa in the countryside. It was in a very private location. It had been entrusted to someone else. Late at night, he called his sister, but she was convinced that Daisy had been wrongly accused. How could a child do such a thing? But what her sister didn't know, on the other side, the man was ready with his weapon, but he was struggling inside. The father had been wandering for days. He didn't know if his daughter could be saved, until the day he sat at his computer and saw the danger of teenage violence. But Daisy found out by accident.